All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for joining us, both here in person at Simmons and online. Welcome, everyone. My name is Helen Popinchalk. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Art and Music in Eiffel College here at Simmons University, where I'm also the director of the Trussman Art Gallery and the curator of the university's art collection. Before we get started this evening, I want to take the opportunity to sincerely thank Professors Ben Cole, and Gary Bailey for helping to make this exhibition possible in this beautiful new space on campus. I also want to thank the School of Social Work for co-hosting our event and the Office of Undergraduate Research and Fellowships for supporting Abhilasha in this endeavor. And also a big thank you to Joe Therian for his tech support tonight. Thank you, Joe. I love seeing art all around campus for everyone to enjoy, and I hope this is just the first of many collaborations. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce Abhilasha Natarajan tonight. She is a senior at Simmons this year, double majoring in social work and studio art. I first met Abhilasha in the spring of 2021. She was a student in my artist books course that I was teaching online because of COVID. Working with Abhilasha was a true pleasure. She took each new technique and pushed her work well beyond the learning expectations for the course. She was also key to creating a sense of community in the cohort, providing encouragement and inspiration for her fellow classmates. She produced a marvelous series of books, some of which are on view here on campus in the main college building, up on the 4th floor, right outside of the Trussman Art Gallery. I hope you all get a chance to see them. At the end of the semester, Abhilasha approached me about doing an independent study, and I jumped at the chance. She designed a rigorous course of study and making for herself, and this exhibition, Reassembling, is just part of the outcome. She created more books and a prolific amount of absolutely fantastic mixed media work. This evening, we're going to hear more about her process, her methods, and the concepts behind this work. So please join me in congratulating and welcoming Abhilasha. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really good to be here, and it's good to be here in person. It's good to be online as well. I want to start first by extending the list of appreciations. I want to start with Professor Helen Popinchalk, who has been my mentor through this journey and my teacher and my support in this exploration. I'm very grateful. Doris Lynn, who has been the administrative backbone of coordinating this event. I truly appreciate all your work. And Jamie Libowitz and Nakisha Cody and the Creative Endeavors Award, who helped to fund putting this exhibit together. Professor Colleen Kieley, who encouraged me to do an independent study. Co-hosts the Trussman Art Gallery and the School of Social Work, who are co-hosting this event. Professors Ben Cole and Gary Bailey, who offered up the space in their departments in the new building, in the new spaces. Professor Katie Nolan for her support and willingness to reach out to the social work student community. Anna Beasley with Simmons University News and Kate Smith's photography and videography team. Not sure your name. Ashley, thank you for being here. And Joe Therum, who's putting together all the tech that is now making it possible for us to do this across the country and actually into Canada as well. And I especially appreciate the people who are in attendance, both here in person and online. And I say this also because I think it's important to recognize that this only happens because of a whole lot of people working together. This is not one person's work. This is really the work of a small community making it all come together. So I wanted to talk briefly about my intention for my independent study And I think as a mature student coming in, especially since I've had some experience in the art world, it's easy to think that I'm supposed to know a certain amount of information already. And what I tried to do during this independent study is to put aside what I thought I knew, to put aside what my current thinking and ideas were about how to make art, and to kind of start an exploration, a new exploration into this space and being curious. One of the things that I wrote in my statement was about this feeling of isolation, just being in the middle of a pandemic and being at home most of the time. Almost all of the classes were on Zoom, and how to get connected, how to stay connected. And so part of my study was to interact with, in a way, other artists. So I did a lot of research into how is this person working with this medium? How is this person doing this technique? And even though that person doesn't know I'm looking them up and looking up their techniques, I'm actually starting a conversation with the way that they work and with myself. And then how do I stay connected with myself? So I'm looking at connectivity outside to the world, and I'm looking at connectivity inside. And how does this feel? And I wanted to share with you also some of my journals during the course of the work so that you know kind of what's going on in my head as I'm progressing. Let's see. I wanted to show you, sorry, I should step in the speaker. I wanted to show you the space where most of the work happened, because this might surprise you, it might not, but because we had limited space just working at home, here is my balcony studio. So that's really where a lot of this work took place. And I don't want to spend too long on there because you might start looking at all the things on my balcony. But for those of you who are at home and don't have the option of coming in and looking at this space, I really wanted to show you what this looks like in the space that we're in. So as you come up to the 4th floor in the C building, you'll see this first part of the exhibit. And then this is the space that we're in now. You'll notice that on the far wall, I don't know where to point, on the far wall over here, we had panels of work, which recently got moved over to this side, but it's the same work. Thank you to the student who was here that day. I don't think they knew they were going to be famous, but and here's some of the work that is in the room as we're speaking. And there's the mobile that's actually behind here. You may not be able to see it very well, even from within the room. So what to do with 6 weeks? I just, thought about the things that I wanted to learn more about and how to approach those. And so I had some themes going forward. I wanted to learn more about collage techniques, about abstract painting, neurographic art, to work with textures, to use stamps, to create stamps, to use stencils, to make stencils, to learn about trace monoprints, and then watercolor, acrylic, mindfulness painting, gratitude feathers. It's a pretty wide list of things to kind of explore. So week 1 was it looks like a pretty slow week. And the reason why it looks like a slow week, at least for me, is because the pages were much bigger than anything I was normally used to doing. And so it actually took me a fair bit of time to start to tear apart and piece together all these little pieces of paper into some formats. And I wasn't particularly satisfied with the way that they looked all by themselves, although I did have some interest in, some of the patterns that could be formed from the direction that I put the text. So I started messing with, implementing some stencils of figures. And I'd been using these figure forms in bookmaking techniques from the previous semester. And I just thought I'd stay with something simple and go forward with it. And here's what I wrote in my journal entry for week 1. I am doing lots of preparation for layering materials. I would love to spend time creating paintings and or pulling prints that will act as material to be integrated into collage works or mixed media works. I enjoyed the effect of paint outlining the torn pieces of paper. I'm glad I varied the layout of the torn papers as well. It might be fun to try waves or other movements with the text collage. I also find myself more attracted to arbitrary tears of paper rather than the square rectangular shapes. I might play with that a bit more too. I felt a bit blocked after the paper sheets were dry and decided to create templates to paint over the texture. I think that will be interesting to try. In addition, I laid down some thin paper over one of the collage works, which adds texture to paint into. These papers are much larger than I'm used to, so it changes my approach. I feel I might need to be more deliberate than in a small space. So that was really the end of week 1. And I'll just tell you, fast forward, some of these pages actually ended up as substrate for the mobile in behind, because I really was so unsatisfied with them as they were. So they needed to become something else. Abstract painting. Week 2 was really the launch pad for most of the series of works in here. And I started by being lucky enough to be involved in a free workshop by someone by the name of Louise Fletcher. And she gives a free workshop, or I guess she has every year or does it annually. And 2 of my artist friends did this alongside of me, which was really fun to do together. And she had specific assignments. And the first assignment was to take a piece of paper and divide it into 4 or 6 sections and paint for 30 minutes. You are only allowed to use, I think, 3 colors of your choosing, plus black and white. And I found this really, really engaging. So I'll go ahead and start with that. Here's my first setup of 6. And these are, in fact, the full sheets of paper divided into 6, 6, and 6. You can't see them divided because the tape is still on it. So I painted right over the tape. Here is one of the pieces then divided. And you can see already the larger formations of the series that are up on the wall, but they're missing a lot of elements and details. There's the second. And there's the third. So assignment 2 was to paint the kind of thing you might normally paint, but do it with tools or colors you might not normally use. Notice what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy. And this is like right up my alley because I want to know what it is I like about this. And painting isn't my first medium, and so I'm still learning what it is that I like about this medium and this paper. So, assignment 2. Here are the 2 pieces from assignment 2. I had to do it twice because I just had to do it twice. And they're behind you on that wall. It turns out I really rather enjoyed that. It was a much larger process, and I was able to integrate some of the neurographic art and the textures. So these are raised textures here on the outside of the figures. That was really fun. And one of the quotes from Louise Fletcher said that in the finished paintings are a byproduct of the process that I love and I get lost in, which I thought was really, really a cool thing. It's not the aim, it's the byproduct. So let's see. Overall, I enjoyed the process and would do it again. At some point, even though this was not the point, I would still like to finish a piece because none of these are actually finished pieces. That would feel complete and satisfying. I might also consider a small framed works or an artist book. Assignment 2 was more difficult, and I had to talk myself back into the spirit of play because I was trying to achieve something. I also had to let go of my hunger to produce finished work. At the end of my first try of assignment 2, I felt like I produced something I'm happy with. I enjoy using the texture paste, the unfamiliar color palette, and the neurographic art technique. I find I often hold a form or pattern or subject for some amount of time before it's finished with me or I with it. That said, I've decided to hang in there with the theme of single or collective figures and play with other variants. I'm happy to be able to incorporate the new approaches to a theme. The second part of the second assignment was initially a challenge, and it didn't look like it would work itself into something I'd be happy with, but I'm glad to say I was wrong, and I'm happy with the results. So week 3 was looking at textures, and this could be in the form of patterns, and this could be in the form of actual felt textures. And I was looking at repetition and variation, and let's see, I ended up making these scratch foam patterns, and then I thought, well, what am I going to do with this page of decorative work? And I decided that since I just learned all these really cool bookmaking techniques, I would turn them into a couple of books here. I did that. And then what I wanted to do next was continue to develop these stamps. This is a scratch foam stamp. There's a scratch foam stamp. And then start to integrate those into these series of 3 paintings that I had already started. So you can see where the same pattern is used repeatedly in each of these, kind of integrating some of these. And I ended up also using some stencils and then started to add some lines in here. You can start to see that they start to look a little bit like they're related to one another on a different level. I guess I should check the time. Yes. Well, I'll go back for a half a second. This journal entry says, this week has not felt nearly long enough to incorporate the different techniques I'd like to try. I got 2 recipes for textures to use for mixed media painting. I have lots to play with. I had lots of fun with the foam prints. Sadly, I was not aware of the length of time I would have before lifting the print off the paper, and one scratch foam adhered itself to the paper and tore when I lifted it. So these are the things that I'm learning as I go through, as I'm sure others have been there before me. Let's see. So week 4, stamps and lino cut printing. So I did a few more of the stamps with the scratch foam, and here they are here. And you'll see as you look around the room, or as I go back through the images, some of these stamps working themselves into the series. And then I started playing with lino cut, but I couldn't just do a lino cut carving. I wanted to try a repeatable lino cut carving. And so that means that this image could be used to connect to the next one, to the next one, to the next one on both the top and each of the sides. It's a very cool process of cutting the image in half and then cutting the image in half again and having them all meet up on the ends. And so here's the results of that repeated pattern. Now I tried it in the red and black. I tried it in the black on white, and then I tried coloring it. Wasn't super excited about the color, but hey, what am I going to do with this if I don't feel like it's going to integrate into the series? I'm going to make some more books. So these books, again, some of these books are going to be over in the other building. So here's my other practice on the lino cuts. I really like images of stone. I love the California poppy. And this was so much harder than I thought it was going to be. I saw this expert. As I said, I did some research before I tried each of these techniques, how other people do it. And this guy got up there. He's been doing it for 40 years. He got up there and made a simple drawing and then made a masterpiece in, like, I don't know, 10, 20 minutes on YouTube, right? And I thought, oh, I can do this. Well, I found out what I could do. But my gems were these little tiny scraps that I could just then integrate either directly or onto the translucent paper and integrate into the section. So we're getting close to time, so I don't want to, belabor too much more. But here's some more of the integration of these stamps as we're going forward. Stencils and chase monoprints, I just will touch briefly on this because I had initially thought I'm going to learn how to do these stencils and monoprints, and I'm going to integrate it into my series. But when I worked on the monos, the tracing, I was so in love with them by themselves, I couldn't bear to rip them up and integrate them. So sticks and stones are kind of another pattern I like to use, and the feathers clearly made their way up to the bird there. But these ones here are a really cool process, which I don't think I have time to completely explain. But I enjoyed it so much more than I thought I would, and ended up making some of them into neurographic art as well. I really love the palette, keeping it super simple with the black and the white and the red. I just think it's a really powerful, simple statement all by itself. And here's some more. And here's some more. And some of the series didn't end up on the wall. They ended up being tiny books. We had a little theme there. And then I could not resist but go back in and start a whole new series. I started 3 new big sheets. And so here's one of them, starting with some of these new stencils that I created, starting with the rock stencils or the stone stencils. And so you'll see the difference between the new ones and the old ones, because they do have a different flavor to them and a different saturation of color. And then I tried them without the borders. There's 4 without borders here, you notice. I thought, do I like this? I don't know. Not sure if I like them as much or more. So I really enjoy the pattern. Some of these are translucent designs, prints that are laid in, collaged over. And second to last week, there's the feathers that I was working with. Some of these turned up in the more little books. So this is a fun little exercise you could really do with anyone. You can't see it. Never mind. So you breathing in, breathing out with a paintbrush. Breathing in, breathing out with a paintbrush. And then you can go back into those lines and connect them and make patterns with them and stuff. And this too could be cut up into other shapes or forms. More gratitude feathers. Adding them into the series work. And I really want to get to. So I wanted to try wooden panels. I'd never done wood before. Of course, I'd never done any of this either. And so behind you are the 4 wooden panels. I worked on them together. I worked on them in a square, and so they actually all match up together if you put them in a square formation. And I started with texture, and I started with a stencil and putting texture over the top, and that was really a fun process for me. Added some paint, some colors, and some more collage. And then I kind of worked on it even after the 6 weeks was up, just to complete that. I have resources and references for every week of people who I looked to for guidance on how they approach the subject. But before I stop talking and start answering questions and having more of a conversation, I wanted to encourage you, if you're local, to go across to the other building, in building A. At the top of the stairs on the 4th floor is this case filled with all the little books that were created in this project, and also some from last semester. There's the shibori die, the stab binding, the hardcover books, various plow books, and also, I don't think I can play this, but there's a little video on how this, it does work. So I won't, let that all the way play out, but I wanted to let you know what was over there so you'd have an invitation to please go over and take a look. And that's really all I have for today. And I thank you so much for coming. This has just been my greatest honor. Thank you.
All right, for everyone who's joining on Zoom, if you guys want to put any questions that you have into the chat, I will moderate them and ask them out loud here. But does anyone in the audience have a question?
Sure. Hi, thank you so much, Abhilasha. That was really, really interesting to hear how you went about it and kept track of your sources and your references and your thinking. It really gave me a lot of insight into the creative process. And I thank you for that clarity and that description. So I had a question. It seems like there are so many substances you were working with.
Okay.
And you know, foam and paper and wood, and then the different colors. I saw that on your screen, on your presentation, you had, I think, colored pencils, and I know you mentioned watercolor. So I'm sure I'm not capturing them all, and I was just wondering, like, what other types of paint did you use, and how did you get, like, what's in back of you, the I forget which what you called
Medium.
that, but like the black neurological lines.
Yeah.
Was that a free form that you did by hand, or? So I had a bunch of questions.
Yeah, thank you. No, I think the medium, I think there's no medium that was off limit, but I used primarily acrylic paints, transparent papers, like rice paper. I did use fine markers and pencil crayons, watercolor integrated into each piece. These ones are unique and special in that I was using mostly ink that you would print with. And I have both a gel plate that you can print with printing ink or acrylic paint. And some of the ink is water-based and some of it is not. It's more permanent. And then for the drawing on top, as I said, there's a kind of a special technique where you ink up a surface, a hard surface, and then raise the level around it and then press into the back of the paper to lift the ink off of the plate. And so that's kind of how that came to be. It's a very cool process. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we have a bunch of questions coming in from Zoom. So I'm going to ask a question and then we'll go back to the audience here. Okay. So we have a compliment. Beautiful art. Earlier, you mentioned you were concerned about outcome. How did you let that go? This artist also tends to worry about that.
Yeah. So that's a really good question. And I'm not sure that I let it go as much as shifted it for time periods. Like when I was painting for the first exercise in getting the first sheet down, I really just set a timer for 30 minutes and not worry about the outcome. So it was 30 minutes by the clock, regardless of what happens and regardless of what it looks like. Over time, then I added to it for more of an outcome kind of perspective. So thank you. I hope that answered the question satisfactorily.
Hi, Abhilasha.
Hi.
My question is going to be very obvious that I'm not a visual artist and I am a writer, and that's where I come from. And I'm wondering if you could speak to a little bit of the narrative for the kind of story of these, sort of moving away from the physical process and what is happening more emotionally and intellectually in this series.
Yeah, so it's a good question. And I think because this is a new medium for me and a new process for me, part of what I was looking for was like, especially since we were so isolated for such a long time, how do we find joy? How do we find things that really motivate us to keep moving toward our goals? And so what I was doing in the process of art making was looking for what brings me joy, like what things excite me and what things do I not like so much, and to really give it an honest try, and not just like assume, oh, I don't know, green, so I'm not using it, but to try playing with green, in this exploration. And the other thing is really to have this conversation and this dialogue between myself and other artists. Where are the artists, saying things that I want to say? Where are there things that I want to say that I don't see being said? And where do we connect on that, and where do we differ from that? And what can I learn from other people's approaches? And so it's more about this feeling of connectivity with the greater artist community, with the Simmons community, and with myself and my process. And so I found it very emotionally satisfying and healing at a time when otherwise I guess we would have been very disconnected.
Okay, here's another question from the chat.
Okay.
What are your thoughts about how you might fuse your artistic talents and your social work passions?
Yeah. So I've been asked this before, and I think there's like an abundant number of areas where they cross over. There's a lot of art right now that is really defined by its speaking to social justice issues, environmental justice issues, issues of oppression, issues of not being visible, not being heard. And then there's a whole bunch of things within the social work realm where we've found that, art is a very helpful process for healing from different things. Right now I'm interning at Beth Israel, where we have a group of artists who all come together, and they all share a common disease of Parkinson's, and they're, so there's these intersections where they happen. I don't think you have to look very far to find where they cross over, but I also feel like I'm okay with them being parallel paths. I don't feel the need to join them in a single forward, journey. So thanks for the question.
Other questions from the audience?
Hi, Abhilasha. Thank you so much. I was struck by how much work you did in such a small amount of time. And I'm wondering just a couple questions about like compacted time, pushing yourself, and so it was compacted time, you were pushing yourself, and the idea that you created a bigger image and then broke it into smaller pieces. So you weren't exercising complete control. You were like really giving up a lot of control. I'm just wondering how those kind of elements, it seems to me that it freed you. And I don't know if that's true. I'd be really interested in hearing if you felt that, because this is wonderful work.
Thank you. I'm not sure how to unpack all of it, but I think it's interesting that you brought out this idea of having a bigger piece and cutting it up into smaller sections, because what it makes me think of is bite-sized, manageable size pieces of life or of work or of going forward. And even though it was large to start with, it didn't feel like it was it didn't feel overwhelming because it had the finite 30-minute windows. And so it's like really like, how do I make things manageable, I guess, in a way, but without controlling it? Like there is some level of control. There's only 3 colors, there's 30 minutes, there's, and then how much can I add to it in this short period of time? What else you touched on? This freeing. There's something about boundaries that allows a freedom. Like I knew I was working for 6 weeks. There's a timeline there. they're like, what can I do with the most valuable thing can I do for this in this period of time? I think if I thought this was an ongoing project forever, I would lose steam. I would lose momentum. I would lose the kind of the pressure that it takes to really hit a deadline. So I think that was really helpful to have that timeline. Thank you. Did that touch on? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, here's another question from Zoom. How does your journaling habit interact with your artistic practice? Do you see it as a break from making or purely a way of documenting, or is it all part of the same process?
That's a great question. And I journal as part of my social work reflection as well. And I think the journaling is really about the connecting on the inside. How does this feel? How's this working for me? Is this going to guide my next direction, whether it's artistic or, my work with people? And I think it's using the self as a resource to know, the direction of the work. I think I'm repeating myself. I hope I answered the question.
Hi, it's me again. I feel personally that in an effort to focus on my profession, I have moved very far away from my work as an artist. I would love to hear your advice onto how you will integrate your art into your life after you've moved away from the structure of school. When you have to figure out how to balance it without that structure, how do we do that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really good question. And I think for me, it's way more powerful if I have an external demand that enhances my internal drive. So, I love to teach and do workshops with classes and with people and help to inspire other people to make art. And doing that really helps me to create as well, right? And so go out and if teaching is part of your nature, and I think it is, to make a proposal to teach a community class and go out and do that. If part of your nature is not teaching, find a show that you can, work toward entering. Maybe there's an exhibit or a show, or even an online. I shouldn't say even an online, but something that you can motivate you on the outside to give you kind of a not really artificial deadline, an actual deadline to enhance the support of your inner drive to want to do that work.
This is another question from Zoom, but I feel like it's a really good follow-on to your question. Do you have plans to continue this exploration? What are you thinking about?
So that's an awesome question too. And I would love to continue similar explorations. I like the finite version of things, so like a 6-week course or something. And my thoughts about that are twofold. First of all, this semester I'm taking photography. So like all of this is put away. And I can show you all the photos I'm taking because I'm really a, one at a time kind of, very tunnel focused. But I would say that I would, being of a teacher type mind, I would like to offer a course, a community course, a one-time workshop, an extended workshop. This is what would keep my exploration going, and to keep it fresh and to keep it new, and have another PowerPoint so that I can show students, kind of give some direction for them to look into what they want to do. So yeah, it's pretty much the same answer, I think.
I can't wait to see how your photography influences your mixed media work. Anyone in the audience have a question they'd like to ask? Okay, here's another one then from Zoom. what inspires the colors and textures that you use, specifically on the art and display here?
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of an orange and red girl by nature. My students back in California will tell you if I'm looking at their work and they're asking me for advice, I'm pretty much guaranteed to say it's almost perfect. Just add a little bit of orange right here. I just 100%. That's not 100%, maybe 99%. I'm going to add orange. So there's a lot of orange, and red and those warm colors. I did experiment with adding, some blue as kind of a contrast, and I really like it. So that's cool. That's what more or less inspired the color palette. I tried green. I really tried. I'm just not a green girl. There's green over there. It works well enough, and I'm just not, So I've experimented. I'm not saying I'm giving up on it. I'm just saying it's not my favorite. Some of the patterns come from, I think, just somewhere deep within my soul. I like line making. I like patterns that are just like a bunch of straight lines. I love rocks. I've done a lot of work with like the image of an Inukshuk, which is a rock statue, or the stone cairns that pile up to make way. I have a story that I've shared with a couple of my good friends about stones being representational of what you put in your day. And there's the big, I don't want to take up a whole story time on this, but there's a teacher at the front of the class with a great big jar, and they put some big stones all the way to the top. And they asked the class, so is it full? And they said yes. And then he got a whole bunch of gravel and poured it around, and is all the way up to the top. And now is it full? And they're like, maybe. and then he got water and poured the water all the way up. And so there's these shifting stones, and I just love that image of the stones. Well, the moral of the story is not that you can always put more on your schedule. It's that if you don't put the big ones in first, you'll never get them in. So anyways, that's my little storytelling.
So we have two questions here on Zoom that are a little bit about sort of concept and technique. So I'm going to try to combine them.
Okay.
So could you talk a little bit about neurographic art?
Yeah.
And then also about the breathing with the paintbrush exercise. We have someone who is very intrigued by the results. And could you talk a little bit more about both of those processes?
Yeah. So I would really encourage you to look up some of the information on, if I can get back to my, here we go. Look up some of the information on neurographic art. There's some on YouTube. You can actually do trainings with it. You can go as far as you want to with this process. But what it is this process where I'm sorry, I'm stepping away from the mic. You can't do that, Abhilasha. So you do some scribbles that are just very organic, and whatever comes out of your pen, wherever the lines intersect, you're going to round all those corners, and it ends up looking like this very organic work. You can see behind me. Neurographic work, I think, came partly out of these connections that we have in our brains, but it's also shown to have very healing properties in the doing of it, in the process of it. So I'm just going to leave it at that because I don't have time to go too further. And you can get way more better information online for that. And then the breathing in, breathing out. Where's that? So there's a woman who also works. Let me see, can I see that? Mindfulness and gratitude feathers. I don't see her. Oh, Creative Muse. Try Creative Muse. She actually walks you through a whole bunch of different techniques for reducing your own anxiety. And this is one of them. And it was, I don't know, a really cool technique where you just take a paintbrush, take some watercolor, take a big paper, and as you're breathing in, one stroke up. It's like exercise. Breathing in, arms up. Breathing down, arms down. Breathing in and breathing out, not down. You don't breathe down. Anyways. So breathing in, paintbrush up. Breathing down, paintbrush down. And it's that simple. There's nothing more complicated. Just stay focused on the brush or the breath, and you can get through the whole page. After that, you can pretty it up however you would like. So.
Okay, just want to check back in with our audience here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead with some more Zoom questions that have come in. I heard when you said the lino prints were difficult. I think someone is commiserating here.
Oh.
I really love your feathers and the California poppies. Do you think you'll make more lino cuts or incorporate your poppy prints into more pieces?
Oh. So, I love the California poppies, and if I was to incorporate those, I would have to make a different cut, because the cut that I made is really small and framed, like all by itself. It's got a frame to it. Where is this little sucker? Oh yeah, so right there. So this is about this small. It's like a little business card size. But it has this frame around it. If I wanted to integrate poppies into something, I would want it not to have the frame around it. So I would definitely make a new cut for that. And I love carving. I love sculpture of any kind. So I would most definitely want to move forward and do more of the stamps and the lino cut carving. The second question was, what was the second question? Yeah, that's the part I thought I answered. Oh, I'm sorry. What was the first part? Oh, yes. Yes. Yes and yes. Yes. And not only that, but stamps and lino cuts can be used in clay. They can be used in powder. They can be used in paint. They just have such a versatile array of uses that you can incorporate into different mediums. I would definitely use them again or recommend them.
I think we have time for about 3 more questions. Okay. Just scanning the room here. Okay. What are plow books? How do you decide what shape or binding to use for your various books? Is it based on the art that it contains, or is it random?
I'm not sure it's random. I think part of it is based on the size of the paper that you're working with, or for me, the size of the paper that I'm working with, whether or not there's an assignment attached to it, because I'm definitely going to do whatever the assignment is. But if there's no assignment attached to it, I'll see kind of what is going to showcase the work the best. Plow books are kind of a strange breed of book, in my opinion. They don't really look like books, although they kind of fold up into a relatively book-like shape in the end. They don't open the way that that I have come to know books to open. They're more like small sculptural book-like things, I guess. I don't know. I think that's fair. Sorry? Oh, yeah. Sure. That makes sense. Thank you. Four, five, six, 7, 8. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, these are several different plow books. I have a friend who may be on Zoom who I sent one of these to because I really didn't know what I was going to do with, the inside of the book. And I had color on it, but like, what do you do with a book that just opens and shuts, So I sent it to her, and she's like a master of Zentangle, and she completely filled it with beautiful Zentangle patterns, and it's just a gorgeous book. And she did some of the pages on the inside of one of the books over in the other building. So thank you, Katie.
Hi, it's me again. What's your big dream? what's the next big dream? And I would love to ask that in the, like, here we go, lens of social work. You know, if you're bringing your art, is it a group? Is it programming? Is it organization? Is it, how are you going to integrate this learning and your deep and talent and gift?
Yeah.
What do you?
Yeah. So
what do you
I hope this answers it sufficiently, but I guess my big dream is that I want to be in the studio at least once a week, and I would love to be like an adjunct, college, art studio teacher, so I could go in and play at least once a week. That would be I think that would be my big dream. I still very much see myself working in social work, full time as well. So however that works out, I guess that's my answer. Like I'm telling the whole universe that.
What modality or technique was most uncomfortable for you and why? And which one was your favorite? Which would you go back to if you had the time right now to go back?
Okay. So my two least favorite processes. Okay. One, I have not shown you. That's how much I didn't like it. So one of the assignments from the Louise Fletcher workshop was to make an ugly picture. Now, I'm not saying that it had to look ugly when you're done. You had to intentionally try and make it ugly. Okay, so you don't like it. You're like, so already I know I'm not going to like it, So I made this thing and I hate it. So I still have it because I don't want to throw out the material. I guess I could make it into something else, but that was my first one that I probably won't go back to unless I'm instructed to. And the second one this was a bear for me. Mobiles are not my friend, but it's just a matter of how to balance it, in my head, it makes sense, but in real life, how do these things work together without falling apart or tangling up or, that kind of thing. So those are the two things I wouldn't go back to unless I had to. And then what I would go back to, I love this whole series process and then finding new ways to integrate similar things to make them all related. I just love that. I think it's super fun.
Okay, I think this is the perfect final question for the evening.
Okay.
This one's from Olivia Ray from the Simmons Voice. How do you plan to integrate what you've learned in your independent study into your career after graduation?
Okay. Excellent. Yeah. I guess in my ideal world, there would be a master's program that incorporated both art and social work. If there were such a thing as a dual major in art and social work at the master's level, I would sign up without thinking about it. There isn't. And so that makes my journey a little bit, it's gonna change how I get to where I'm going, I think. But, I'm gonna finish, knock on wood here. I'm gonna finish, my bachelor's and then go into my master's in social work and continue art making because I can't live without art like I can't live without breathing. And then keep moving forward in the direction of being able to stay in the studio while practicing social work. So I think that's the end goal. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing all your insights tonight. Thank you everyone who's here at Simmons in person with us, and thank you everyone who joined us online.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you.